we are looking at a few questions and answers in PHP. The first one is, of course, what is PHP? So PHP is an open source server-side scripting language, which are commonly used for web application. And I must say it is widely used for web application development. PHP, the name is PHP. That means this is for preprocessor hypertext preprocessor. That means this is hypertext preprocessor, and this P is for PHP. So that is a recursive definition. This is PHP. P stands for PHP hypertext preprocessor. Okay. So this is just like your JSP or ASP or any other your server-side technology. And the USP of PHP is it is an open source, freely available server-side scripting language. And the most important part is PHP is backed by, or you can say the coding or the syntax scenario is more like C language. So whenever you program in PHP, if you are aware of some sort of programming language, it will be very easy to program. What is open source software? Open source software or softwares whose source codes are freely used, modified, and can be shared by anyone is called open source software. So there is a difference between a free and open source, that is we call it as FOSS, and there is a difference between only open source software. There may be open source software that may not be free, okay, but there may be some free software that may not be your open source, that can only be used as, say, shareware or some for a time being a trial version. So these can also be distributed under licenses like your Berkeley distribution, your different type of distribution licenses are there that adhere with this open source definition. Okay. What is the difference between include once, and require once? The include statement, this includes and evaluates a specified line, which means it will include a file based on a given path. What about require? Require does the same thing, except if certain failure is there, it is going to generate a fatal error and it is going to stop or halt this script, whereas include will just give a warning and will not halt your script, or it will allow your script to run. So what do we mean when we say require once? Require once will check if the file already has been included, and if so, it will not include the file yet again. What are the differences between get, post, and request method? This is most often asked question. Get and post, they both are used to send information from client browser to web browser. Oh, sorry, web server. The get, in case of get, the information is sent via get method in name value pair, and it is URL encoded. That means this is your browser and this is your URL, the address bar. Then you will see the actual stuff there, whatever you're sending. The default is around say 512 characters. On the other hand, the post method transfers the information via HTTP headers. So this post method does not have any sort of restriction in data size to be sent. Whenever you have security or sanctity issues, so post is used for sending data securely in ASCII and binary type data. What about request? This $_request, this would contain both get, post as well as the cookie. So request is going to fulfill your both the command. What are the different errors in PHP? Errors or problems. There are four basic types of error. First is your parse error, and this is commonly caused due to syntax mistakes in codes, like the missing semicolon or mismatched brackets. When it comes to the second one, it is fatal error, and these are generally the runtime errors which are caused when you try to access what or try to do what can't be done. For example, you're trying to access a dead object or trying to use a function that hasn't been declared at all. Then we have warning error. Warning error. So this would occur when you try to include a file that is not present. Say you want to delete a file that is not on the server. This will not halt or stop your script, but it will give the notice and continue with the next line of the script. Then the final one is notice error. So these errors occurs when you try to use a variable that hasn't been declared. This will not again halt the script, but it will give the notice and continue with the next line of the script. What is session and why do we use it? Session is a super global variable that would preserve data across subsequent pages. So if you have multiple pages, this variable, say var x, it is going to preserve the data across subsequent pages. Sessions uniquely defines each user with certain session ID. So it will help making customized web application where user tracking is desired or needed, like your banking, like your some reservation. What is cookie and why do we use it? Cookie, these are very small scripts, say, or small data which is held in your browser or your system. So cookie is a small piece of information which is stored in your client browser, and it is technique used to identify user using the information stored in their browser. So in the browser, whenever for say session tracking, etc., you ought to have certain data that needs to be looked by the browser to understand and to make decision. Say if you want to identify a user using the information stored in their browser, say if you already visited that website, etc. That is why, and there are various reasons why cookie are so popular. And using PHP, you can do both the things. You can get or set cookies. How to print current date and time? You just have to echo, and then you have to use this function date. This is year, month, date, and this is hour. Okay, time. So this is how you print current date and time. What function do we use to find length of string and length of array? For that, if you want, first one is the length of string. For that, you are going to use string length function, strlen function. Then the length of the array, for this you are going to use simple count function. How can we change the value of a constant? See, the constant means a constant. Means if you want to change the Boltzmann constant or Planck constant or say pi rather, for a simple example, it will not be a constant then. Constant means you cannot change the value. What is the difference between this unset and unlinked function? Unset is used to destroy a variable, while this unlink is used to destroy a file. Unset, destroy a variable. Unlink is used to destroy a file. How do we get the current session ID? For that, you just have to go to the session start and then just echo session ID. So it is going to get the current session ID for you. How do we destroy a session? For that, you need to start the session and just session underscore destroy. What is the difference between explode and split function? See, both are used to split a string to array. The basic difference is that split uses pattern. For splitting, explode uses a string. Means if you have A, you say and B and C. So these A, B and C, they have string inside, or they are split by, not split but exploded using a string. While we use split, you can do like this. So here you are, in the first case you are using the string. In the second case you are using a regular expression actually. Okay. Explode is faster than split as it does not match the string based on regular expression. And also split is actually deprecated as of the version 5.3.0. So split function is rather discouraged. What is an associative array? Associative array, these are the array that use named key that you assign to them. For instance, if you want to see how it looks like, this is capitals, this is equal to array, and then India, we are talking about the, say, the capitals. So India, and then the way we write is, you have an array, you have to write specific array here, means ARRAY, in the bracket. This is the name, this is the value. So these are the name value pairs. A property, say property value pairs. So India's capital is New Delhi, comma. So these are in double quotes, and by this is the sign showing that this actually value belongs to this, then comma, and finally likewise the other members. So associative array, these are array that use named keys that you assign to them. What is PDO classes? PDO stands for, this P is for PHP, this is for data, and this is for objects. So this PDO extension defines a lightweight, consistent interface for what? The MySQLize, and the same task is done by PDO, that is accessing database in PHP. It is a data access abstraction layer. So no matter which database you use, this is important. No matter what database, so this is every database friendly and database you can say neutral. We use the function to issue queries and fetch data, that will be same. And using these PDO drivers, we can connect to database like say DB2, Oracle, Postgre, SQL, etc. What is the difference between JavaScript and PHP? See, they both are complementary to each other, you can say, because they are different technologies developed for different tasks altogether. JavaScript is a client-side scripting language, but some people say, and I've learned also, that this can be used for other purposes also. But it has become popular. You can find the variation of JavaScript like jQuery, like AngularJS, like Node.js. So many options are there for the client-side scripting language, or giving dynamicity to your client, or you can say HTML page. While this PHP is actually a server-side scripting language, which is equivalent to, or which matches with your servlets, your JSPs and your ASPs, and like these languages. So there is an altogether different thing. This is a client, this is a server. Now client, say you have a website or HTML page, all the dynamicity will be provided by JavaScript. While here, if you want to have some data that is there in your say web server, then for that you need to use the PHP. You cannot use JavaScript for that. Yes, but for submitting data, so say there are ways in which you can use JavaScript for submitting form data, etc. If you are not using PHP at that point of time. What is CSS? Cascading style sheet. This is like a makeup for a human being. So for your page, for a HTML page, cascading style sheet or CSS is a way to style and presentation or present HTML. This is how your font should look like, what color should be there, how it should slide, what will be the corners of the say button, what the animations, all these things are defined in your CSS. And CSS3 actually has revolutionized the way today modern world website looks. What is the difference between ID and class in CSS? So the difference between this ID, identifier, and class is that ID can be used to identify only one element, whereas a class can be used to identify more than one. how can we submit a form without using submit buttons? As I just suggested that you want to submit a form without using the submit button. So we can use the JavaScript submit function. We have it in JavaScript. So we can use either use a form name or a form ID to print document, like this get document get element by ID, and this is your form ID, and then submit, or rather you can just use the form name. So document.form name.submit. These two both are they are going to solve your purpose. Any of these. Why do we use multi-part form data in HTML form? You might have seen whenever you open a form and this inside that tag form, you will always see this multi-part form data in HTML form. Why? This is actually the encoding used to send image and files via form. So if you want to send only the data with say some post or get method, it is okay. But when you want to send image and files, upload file, sending image, then you have to use this encoding. So the data will be split into multiple parts, and one for each file plus one for the text of the form body that may be sent with them. What is AJAX? What is AJAX? AJAX is, if you want the full form, it is simply asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So this is a technique, because let me explain it to you. You have a page, you have a small part. You don't want to go to the server again and again. Means you don't want to send this page again and again to the server to refresh it. You want this small part, say 2 or 3 parts, to be updated without reloading it. Like you have a website of a cricket website. Now some match is going on, you want to update it, the scores, without asking user to refresh it again and again. For that you use this AJAX. So it is a technique which allow updating parts of a web page without reloading the whole page, and this data is exchanged asynchronously in small amount of data with the server. What is jQuery? jQuery is like a minimized and well polished form of say JavaScript. So it is a fast, small and feature-rich JavaScript library. So it is an easy to use API which make things like HTML document traversal and manipulation, the event handling, the animation, and AJAX quite simpler across multitude of browsers. How do we show and hide an element via jQuery? Suppose we want to show and hide elements of a div, that is division element of HTML with ID div1. So you just have to do this hash. If the ID is div1, you have to just use this dollar and in single quotes hash div1.show. So it is going to show, and same for hide. These two functions are of your use for this particular answer. How can we change font size using jQuery? Say if you want to change font size of say div with ID div1 from 12px to 18px. For that you can use dollar this div1, same scenario, single quotes hash div1 dot css font size comma 18px. What is the difference between SQL and MySQL? SQL is structured query language, so this is actually a type of language which is specifically designed or made for database accessing. Actually, there are various languages available. So there was a need that okay, for database we want some specific language. So specifically created, specifically designed language is SQL. So this is a programming sort of language designed for managing data which are held in RDBMS, that is Relational Database Management System. MySQL, while is an open source relational database management system now held and controlled by the Oracle Corporation. How do we use group by and order by function in MySQL? See, the group by is used for retrieving information about a group of data. So it is generally used with some aggregate functions like sum, average, etc. While the order by is used to sort the record using column name. So it can sort column in both ascending and descending. Ascending is by default, you can use order by, and then you can use this DESC so that the order is descending. What is join in MySQL and what are the different types of join? When we have to fetch records from more than one table, we can use join keyword. Okay, means if you are fetching record from one table, it is okay. But what about fetching the record from multiple tables? For that, you have to use this join. So this process is actually called joining the tables. So there are various types of join, like the inner join, left join, right join, and outer join. So what is the difference between this left join, right join, inner join? Inner join compares two tables and only returns results where a match is going to exist. Record from the first table are duplicated when they match with the multiple results in the second, while the inner join tends to make result set smaller, but because records can be duplicated, that is not guaranteed. That isn't guaranteed. Left join means it keep all records from the first table no matter what and insert null values when the second table doesn't match. In the right one, right means the opposite, means keep all the records from the second table no matter what and insert the null values when the first table doesn't match. If we use sum function in MySQL, does it return sum of that row or for that column? The answer is sum function works on the column basis and it will return the sum of the particular row. It means you can get the sum of the particular per column basis. What do we use to remove duplicate records while fetching a data in MySQL? We use this distinct keyword which we want to remove the duplicacy. What is the use of count function? Count. This is used for fetching the total number of records in a table. How do we use this percent when performing a search query? Let us take an example, like select star from customer where name like SS percent. What it means is this query is going to fetch all the customers' data where names start with SA and it may end with anyone. Means SAM, SAMEER, all these will be given to you. And this, for example, like select star from customer where name like star percent comma percent, that means now in this case query it will fetch all the customer where you find this Kumar irrespective of the position. So it may start with any single alphabet or string, and it should include Kumar in between. Okay. How do we delete a row in a table? So we take an example how to delete. We say delete from customer. This is your table name where CID or any criteria you can use. CID is equal to 150. This is how you delete. So in this case, it will delete the record or the tuple or the row of the customer with customer ID say 150. How do we drop a table? So you just have to say drop and the table name. Drop table and then customers. So it is going to drop the table customers. So these are a few questions which we just discussed, and hopefully it is going to benefit you. Thank you so much. Take care.